Hello and welcome back to DevPulse, your weekly dose of the news from the game dev world. This week is packed. Little Nightmares 3 finally crawled out of the dark, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 is back in the headlines, and Quantic Dream CEO just spoke out. Let's get into it. October is almost over and it has been one of the busiest release months of the year, not just for blockbusters, but for smaller narrative titles fighting for attention between live service juggernauts. Let's start with the one everyone's talking about, Little Nightmares 3. The long-awaited Little Nightmares 3 dropped in early October, developed by Supermassive Games under Bandai Namco's banner, and it's been met with a mix of praise and frustration. Critics are fairly positive, giving it average scores in the low 70s to mid 80s. Reviews highlight the eerie visual style and unsettling tone the series is known for. The atmosphere is fantastic and the concept is ambitious. But we hop onto Steam and the sentiment flips, staying around 50% positive as of this week. Players love the aesthetic but complain about pacing, occasional bugs, and what they see as lack of innovation compared to Little Nightmares 2. Some even describe it as beautiful but safe. Great for screenshots, less so for replay value. Supermassive choice to push co-op seems divisive. For some, it breaks immersion, for others, it's a step toward more dynamic storytelling. Either way, the series remains a visual benchmark in horror-adjacent indies. Now, from Nightmares to Vampires, Bloodlines 2 is one of the longest-running development sagas. Originally, around years ago, under Hardsuit Labs, it was shelved, rebooted, and eventually handed to the Chinese Room, the studio behind Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. The latest news, PS5 pre-orders have been refunded, stirring confusion and reigniting concerns about whether the game is actually close to launch. Paradox says development is progressing, but after years of turbulence and narrative rewrites, the fanbase is understandably wary. Community sentiment right now is hopeful but skeptical. Everyone wants it to succeed, few believe it will without another reset. And the first reviews are in, however. Unfortunately, that's largely where the list of advantages ends. Critics point out that the game suffers from numerous technical issues. One journalist even said that the optimization is among the worst they've seen recently. On the downside, reviewers also noted overly linear and repetitive gameplay, along with limited player choice in shallow world interactions. There are also plenty of comments saying the game is overloaded with long, meaningless dialogues, and that the side missions are boring and formulaic. The game's resurrection arc says a lot about how volatile mid-budget AAA development can be, especially for narrative RPGs without a clear monetization model. Moving on, you might have seen the reports earlier this week about NetEase cutting jobs across multiple studios. That led fans to ask, what about Quantic Dream, the studio behind Detroit Become Human and the upcoming Star Wars Eclipse? Well, CEO Guillaume de Fondumier, apologies if I butchered that name, took to LinkedIn to set the record straight. In short, Quantic Dream is fine. He said that the studio was not affected by the layoffs and remained stable under NetEase's ownership. It's a rare moment of transparency in a year where studio layoffs and restructuring seem to be headlining every week. Quantic Dream is working on a new title called Spellcasters Chronicles, a free-to-play team-based 3 vs 3 action strategy title that blends deck building, creature summoning, and large-scale magical battle. Matches are designed to last around 25 minutes, with players choosing a mage archetype, building a spell deck from over 50 options, summoning armies and giants, and fighting in vertical arenas from a third-person view. The game will launch on PC and enter its closed beta before the end of 2025. Still, it shows how fragile the ecosystem is. Even well-known narrative studios feel the ripple effect of parent company decisions. Elsewhere, we've seen Keeper from Double Fine and Xbox Game Studios drop this month, a creative, smaller-scale project that's been a quite critical success. Blood West and NASCAR 25 also joined the October lineup, proving this is one of the densest months of releases we've had all year. For the players it's great, for studios it's brutal competition. According to analysts like Newzoo, the global games market is expected to hit around 188 billion this year, about 3% growth, so the industry is still growing but not as fast as it used to. Digital spending, live service games and mobile still drive most of that growth. But behind the numbers, publishers are being cautious, cutting costs, delaying projects, and trying to hold player attention for longer through live events and subscription models. It's a weird moment. Money's flowing, but everyone's nervous. That's it for this week's Dev Pulse. A mix of excitement, unease, and a lot of releases vying for attention. Little Nightmares 3 may have not lived up to fans' expectations, but it's keeping the narrative horror alive. Bloodlines 2 continues its slow crawl back from the grave, and through it all, studios like Quantic Dream remind us how fragile but fascinating the business of making games really is. Thanks for watching, hit like and subscribe, and drop a comment which game are you most excited for from October releases. Until next time, see ya.